The invention that took over humanity, the phone. You're probably reading this on a phone right now, and if you're not, there's one within arm's reach. You check it first thing in the morning before you say a word to anyone. You check it last thing at night before you close your eyes. And somewhere in between, you've checked it roughly 96 more times. Not because something important happened, just because it was there. This is the story of how a small rectangular piece of glass became the most powerful object in human history. Before the phone existed, distance was a wall. If someone you loved was on the other side of the country, they were essentially gone. You wrote a letter, waited weeks, hoped they wrote back. Urgent news traveled by telegraph. Dots and dashes tapped through wires by operators who decoded messages for a fee. If your business partner in another city made a bad deal, you found out 3 weeks later by mail. If a family member fell ill far away, you might not know until it was already over. Communication had a delay built into it, and the entire world operated around that delay. People made decisions slowly, planned far in advance, and then in 1876, a 29-year-old Scottish-American inventor named Alexander Graham Bell transmitted the first words ever spoken through a wire. "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." His assistant in the next room heard it clearly. Bell had done what most people said was impossible. Turned a human voice into an electrical signal, sent it down a wire, and turned it back into sound on the other side. The reaction from the establishment was less than enthusiastic. Western Union, the most powerful communication company in the world at the time, was offered the patent for $100,000 and turned it down. Their internal memo reportedly called the telephone an electrical toy, with no practical commercial value. That memo became Within 10 years, there were over 150,000 telephones in the United States alone. Within 30, they were in homes, offices, and hotels across the entire industrialized world. But these early phones were nothing like what we carry today. They were fixed to walls. They required operators, mostly young women sitting at massive switchboards, to manually connect your call to another line. You picked up the receiver, told the operator who you wanted to reach, and waited while she physically plugged a cable into the right socket. Privacy was minimal. Party lines meant multiple households shared the same connection, and eavesdropping was common enough that it became a social problem. Still, it was a revolution. For the first time in human history, two people could speak to each other in real time across a distance. The door became a window in 1973 when Motorola engineer Martin Cooper stood on a New York City street and made the first handheld mobile phone call. The device weighed over a kilogram, took 10 hours to charge, and gave you 30 minutes of talk time. It looked like a brick with an antenna. Cooper reportedly called a rival engineer at Bell Labs just to tell him the news, a move that was either professional courtesy or the most legendary flex in the history of technology. Either way, the era of the portable phone had begun. It took another 2 decades for mobile phones to become affordable and widespread. But by the late 1990s, teenagers across Europe and Asia were texting each other in shorthand on tiny keyboards. And the phone was no longer a household appliance. It was a personal one. Your phone. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared the world for January 9th, 2007. Steve Jobs walked onto a stage in San Francisco and told the audience he was going to show them 3 things: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet device. The crowd cheered 3 times. Then he smiled and said they weren't 3 separate devices. They were one. The iPhone wasn't the first smartphone, but it was the first one that felt like the future. No keyboard, no stylus, just glass and touch and a screen that responded like it understood you. The phone stopped being a communication. What followed was the fastest behavioral shift in recorded human history. Within 5 years, over 1 billion people owned smartphones. Within 10, those smartphones had front-facing cameras, app stores with millions of options, and platforms specifically engineered to keep you scrolling. Instagram launched in 2010, Snapchat in 2011. TikTok arrived later and finished what the others started. These weren't just apps. They were systems built by teams of engineers and behavioral psychologists whose entire job was to make you stay just a little bit longer. The infinite scroll, no endpoint, no stopping cue, was designed specifically to prevent your brain from getting the signal that it was time to stop. The notification badge tapping into the same neural pathway as a slot machine. The like button engineered to deliver unpredictable rewards, because unpredictable rewards are more addictive than consistent. And what it did to the human brain was not subtle. Studies began showing that average attention spans were shrinking, not because humans were getting dumber, but because the brain is adaptive. If it gets a hit of stimulation every 8 seconds, it stops tolerating anything slower. Reading long articles became harder. Sitting through a film without checking the phone became a conscious effort. A 2023 study found that the average person touches their phone over 2,600 times per day. Another found that the mere presence of a phone on a desk, even face down, even silent, reduces cognitive capacity in the people nearby, simply because part of the brain is always waiting for it. The phone had become a background. The darker side sits in the data most platforms prefer not to discuss. Rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness among teenagers rose sharply in the early 2000s, precisely when smartphone ownership in that age group crossed 50%. Sleep disruption from screen light and late-night scrolling became so widespread that sleep scientists began calling it a public health issue. Children who had grown up with tablets from infancy were showing delayed speech development and reduced tolerance for boredom, the exact state of mind where creativity, problem-solving, and imagination develop. The phone had given humanity, and yet, there is no going back. The phone didn't just change how we communicate. It changed how we navigate, how we shop, how we learn, how we fall in love, how we remember things, how we find out someone has died. It is simultaneously the most useful tool ever created and the most effectively addictive product ever designed. Billions of people carry it everywhere, sleep with it beside them, and Alexander Graham Bell wanted to replace the telegraph. He had no idea he was building the nervous system of a new civilization. And somewhere out there right now, an engineer is working on the next version. Something that doesn't sit in your pocket but wraps around your wrist, or sits in your ear, or overlays the world in front of your eyes. The Takeover. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. New videos every week.